Please join me in welcoming Sahra Kahim. There she is.
Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here. I'm
Hi,
so
Sahra.
excited. Hi. Hi,
We're
Beth.
excited to have you.
I love how it's two Sarahs. Sarah first and then another.
I know. When I was doing the agenda, I was like, oh, that's okay.
Love that.
All right. Take it
Let's get
away.
started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Loop. I'm so incredibly excited to be here with you all, circling the global and connecting with so many amazing community leaders and following up on the content that Sarah just did. Give me a quick second here. Amazing. So just to start and piggyback on what Beth said. So my name is Sahra Kahim, and I'm a community champion here at Supermetrics. And my journey is probably quite similar to many of yours. I started my career first in sales and account management, and then I transitioned over to customer success, where I saw firsthand how community can transform a customer relationship. And this experience inspired my master thesis, where I dove deep into how to build and grow communities, specifically for marketers, analysts. And in my talk today, I'll share a little bit more about a playbook based on everything I've learned and everything the industry data is telling us. So to tell you a little bit more, and that brings us to the actual topic of today, which I want to explore. Our industry is at a unique and frankly paradoxical moment. On one hand, the work that we do has never been more critical, and the CMX report confirms that staggering 85% of community professionals believe that their work is core to the company's mission. We're not just a nice to have anymore, we're a strategic asset. But here's the paradox. We're asked to prove more value with fewer resources. The same report found that 17% of teams have no working full-time on community, no people working on them, and the highest number in CMX has ever seen. The budgets are flat or decreasing for many, and the pressure to justify our existence is more intense than ever. We're in a crunch, but I'm here to tell you that we're not at a dead end, it's an inflection point. Let's dive into the data that tells a story. So the CMX report paints a clear picture on thinly stretched industry. The most common team sizes remain, again, from 2 to 5 people, yet the community work is expanding into more departments than ever before, especially customer success, communication. And this tells us our value is being recognized, but it's often being distributed across the organization rather than being a dedicated function on its own headcount. The old model of do it all community manager is officially over, or at least I'd like to hope so. And the data shows that teams are shedding responsibilities with a rise in the numbers of people who do not do things like run chapter-based programs or design community experiences. We have to make tough choices about where to invest our limited time and resources. And I know a lot of people can resonate with this, but this isn't a story of decline. It's a story of evolution. The most exciting evolution is how we're leveraging technology. The report found that 81% of community professionals now use AI tools. I think Sarah gave a great examples on how she utilizes and their team utilizes AI. But again, the most important part is finding how we're using them. And we're not just using AI for basic tasks like, hey, content creation or other stuff, but we're using it for strategic application, like analyzing and summarizing data and getting personalized recommendations, whether it's the tone of our emails, but also recommendations on community strategy. AI is becoming a force multiplier, and it's helping us lean teams operate with a strategic sophistication that was once reserved for much larger operations. Again, ChatGPT, Gemini, everyone, my best friends here. And this brings us to the human element. I really focused on my master thesis on communities for marketers and analysts, which taught me a lot about some crucial elements. Again, thriving community isn't just about a platform or a perfect tech stack, but it's on building on a foundation of human psychology. People are not only motivated by a deep need for autonomy and competence, but also relatedness. They're looking for a sense of belonging. Again, to combat what I've termed workplace loneliness in the digital age. So here's our challenge. We must embrace the strategic side of our work, the data, the return on investment, the business outcomes without losing the human touch. That makes our communities valuable in the first place. And we have to build on spaces that are not just technologically advanced, but also emotionally resonant. Which again brings us to the first step of our playbook. We have to stop getting stuck debating on our job titles and start proving our value with outcomes. We need to be able to answer these questions. What is the purpose of our community in one sentence? The answer isn't that we create webinars or run a forum. It's business outcome. For example, our purpose is that we deliver digital experiences that help customers adopt faster, expand smarter, and succeed independently. This is a simple reframe and a shift, and it shifts the focus from our activities to our impact. It's the difference between being an order taker, instead it goes to being a strategy driver. And again, practical examples that we all love. And let's get really practical. And how do we do this? We must map every program we run into a business outcome. This is really crucial. And this is an example from Gainsight's workbook, a knowledge base. It's not just a library. It's not just a library of content of what our business has. It's a way for us to achieve support ticket deflection. What's a certification program? It's not just a badge. It's an accelerator to expansion readiness. Again, what's an onboarding flow in the community? It directly impacts our customers' time to first value. When you can draw a straight line from the work that we do to a business outcome, your work becomes indispensable. This takes us to steps 3 and 4 of the Prove It Play. Now we need to get our data in order. The CMX report has a powerful finding. Teams that with a CRM that connects community with the customer data are twice as likely to rate their impact as extremely successful. And this isn't just a coincidence. Connecting our data allows us to prove our value. With hard numbers, we can show that customers who engage in the community have a higher retention rate, a faster time to first time value, a higher product adoption rate, and then we move from anecdotal evidence to a data-backed business case. And finally, the data gets attention, but stories that we tell make it stick. We need to become strategic storytellers. We need to take our CRM data and pair it with compelling human stories about how the customer used to use the community resource to solve one of their problems and then went and became an advocate. Lead with human impact, then use the data to validate this information. This is how we win not only hearts, but minds. And ultimately, that's how we secure the resource that we need. So again, let's bring the Prove It playbook into a compact package. Step 1, measure the impact. What does that mean? Map every program you have to a business outcome. Step 2, translate your value. Speak the language that leadership speaks. Step 3, connect your data. Again, teams with integrations to CRMs are 2 times as likely to be extremely successful. And then that leads us to our final step. Become a strategic storyteller. The data gets attention, but the stories, again, make it stick. Lead with the human value. To conclude, the future of our industry is in our hands, and we have to re-architect our professional narratives to thrive in this new landscape. Let's move from reactive, tactical mindset to a strategic, proactive one. We have the data, we have the tools, we have the passion to make this work happen. And by focusing on these outcomes, telling impactful stories, and leveraging the technology that we have to enhance the human touch, we can really shift from a defense to an influence. And we can stop just doing the work and start driving with strategy. I wanted to leave some time at the end here to leave for questions, open-ended questions for everybody, because as you guys know, all communities are individual. And I want to make sure that I know that we are all going through a lot of the similar pains here.
And good, because I have lots of questions. I feel like you covered so much, and there's so many different, like you said, there's so many different kinds of communities and how people are running their programs, how they're deciding to run their programs, how they're proving their value of their programs. So I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask, and then if it prompts any other questions from the audience, please pop them in Q&A. I feel like Q&A is limiting. Like, I want it to be like question and answer and comments, because we want to just hear what you're thinking about and like what this made you think about, um, or something that you're going to implement into your own work or some. Anyway, Q&A and C, we'll call it.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to
So
touch on is just the epidemic of loneliness in the community industry in this digital space. I think when I was doing my research, that's something I found very common. It's, as mentioned in the CMX research and the research that I've done, a lot of us work in really small teams or just individual contributors, and it leads to us leaning on each other in the community in a global like CMX community.
totally, it's true, especially because most of us are on small teams, if you can even call one person a team. So then if you look at a community like CMX or a community collective or led by community, it's like, this is where you can find your colleagues, you know? These are the people who can help you like create a problem solve when ChatGPT just doesn't cut it.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, I wrote a few notes down. Um, okay, so if you could borrow one like attribute or one playbook uh, skill that you learned from customer success to strengthen your community, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's a lot of customer success people become community leaders as well is because they understand there's the empathy deep down there, right? You build these really strong relationships. And when you move it to community, it's really important to convey that message as well, that because we went from an individual relationship to a more bigger forum, I think this also touches on some of the relationships that you build. Again, listen to them, go back to them, ask them. They're the community members, have this open dialogue with them. I still continue with my customer success habituals of checking in with my customers and checking in with our members to understand what they're looking for. Because again, I want it to be a space that is and for them, but by us, if that makes sense. So again, incorporate everything that they're thinking into our communities.
But how do you keep that sustainable? I mean, if you're running a global community of thousands of people, I mean, obviously CSMs have, I know a lot of CSMs are overworked and probably have way too big of a catalog of customers to check in with. But like, how are you actually checking in with? How do you choose who to check in with in your community?
Great question. I utilize the data. Again, it comes back to the outcomes and the data. I look at who are active ones, who are people who are constantly not only giving us feedback, but are a part of all the webinars and events that we do, but also reply to all the surveys and want and need to collaborate with us. And I love that. Those are usually the ones who are ready to bring more to the table as well. And those are the ones that we want to also highlight. These are the super users. These are the people that we want in our community.
Okay, so we're grilling you.
Go ahead.
You mentioned feedback, and you talked a little bit about product feedback flow anyway. Um, so when you talk about the super users giving you feedback specifically about the product or about the programs, um, how do you how do you not take their ideas but still encourage them to give you ideas in the future? Because not all the ideas are great. Not all the ideas are
No.
ones you can prioritize. So how do you like pick and choose, but then still kind of like let them down easy when their ideas never get chosen?
That's a really good point. But again, you always have to listen. We're here to listen. We're here to build a feedback loop, and we want to know what you're thinking. So instead of, like you said, not all ideas might not always be great, but let's hear them out. What is the pain and what are we trying to resolve with this? What is the actual and what's the ideal and like outcome that you would like? Then we have that conversation, and then we try to find a good healthy median. But also, again, we all want to be in the moon by tomorrow, but again, we have to figure out the steps. There has to be engineering, there has to be mathematics, there has to be things that we need to do to get there. And I take this feedback into to our product teams and speak the product language, right? And I say, hey, we're doing this and this and this. Is there a way for us to incorporate this into whatever it is that we're doing? You kind of have to, again, be the storyteller. You're like, this is the pain point. This is what we're trying to resolve. This is also what the users and the members are trying to resolve. How do we speak the same language and come together and try and resolve this? find a good healthy median, and then compromise and go forward with that. It's usually just about how you tell the story and the impact, right? And what is the outcome.
True. And I think that makes it like sets up good product manager aside from a great product manager. Because I know that when I talk to our product manager, G, and I'm like, this is my problem, or like, this is the idea, I need this to happen. He's like, okay, that's not great. But what if we did this instead, which would solve your problem and it would solve these other 10 people's problems? And it's easier to build and it's faster to build. And so he's really good at like validating, listening, being like, this is a great idea. This is the problem you're trying to solve. Let's do this other thing.
Exactly. And it's like, this Varan is saying in the chat, it's really helpful to address the ideas, but again, you have to reject them politely. But rejection, I think, is a strong word. I think redirect and maybe have an open conversation, emphasize and listen. And again, I love the relationship you have with your product manager. We have the similar ones. The product managers actually understand the customers probably more than we do, or the members, because they do the nitty gritty and the actual work. So whenever I go to them with these discussion, I guess that's the difference between wearing the customer success hat and the community hat, is how do we, again, tell a story but come to a conclusion. As a community manager, you have to think about the overall picture and the story that we're telling. So again, you have to come back to, this is what we're all trying to resolve. This is what we're doing. Would that work for you? And as a customer success manager, you kind of also not only focus on the pain points and other stuff, there's so many other things that go into it. But I think the community and the product kind of bring it all together.
I love that. I see a few more questions popping up, which is great. For those of you who are in the chat, if you don't have a question, I still encourage you to go into the Q&A tab, because you can upvote questions that you want to hear the answers to. I'm actually going to sort the questions by the most voted, so we ask the ones that people want us to answer. So speaking of which, Brianna Green, hello Brianna, nice to see you. Any tips for building trust around AI within our communities?
Oh, great question. I think the whole industry and everybody now is working so hard to build trust around AI. And within our communities, I think you have to think about it as an echo chamber, but also a partner for you, not just let AI do everything, but work together with AI. You need to teach your AI model as well to speak the same language as your members do, what the same language you do, and make sure that it's always fact-based, right? This is what we're doing. This is how, utilize the AI to kind of rephrase what you're trying to say and make sure it's empathetic and you answer the questions what you're doing. The building of the trust, I think we all have parents or elder generations who are still like, oh, I'm not talking to a computer, but like we try to tell them that this is actually quite useful and it helps you. I think of it as a partner or a colleague that I work with, that I bounce ideas around with. So the more you actually work with data and then and work with AI, I think you're able to help customers also utilize, or members utilize, and trust AI within your community based on how you utilize your AI and how factual it actually is.
Mm-hmm. The thing I always think about when like, how do you build trust is, oh no, the word escaped me. Just like being honest about what you're doing. Oh, transparency. That's the one. Where you are being transparent, and this is how we're using AI in this community. This is how your data is shared with AI. This is how we're, using your data to learn with our AI. Just so that people know, because it
Exactly.
shouldn't be a secret that you're using it or how you're using it. It should be like, we all know that this is happening. So I'm going to tell you exactly how we're using it.
And again, I think to reiterate and highlight, there's a human behind everything. So if I'm writing an email with an AI, I'm still behind it. I need to make sure that I work together, or the AI works with what I'm trying to say with my messaging. So you need to trust the human who's utilizing it. So I think you build trust by, like Beth said, you teach them how you're, like, show them how you're using it and highlight that.
Well, and I mean, I know that there's some companies that until you give them a certain amount of money, like you'll always get a robot CSM. You'll always get an AI chat until you pay them a certain subscription point or whatever, and then you get graduated to a real person.
Exactly.
But I don't know if that is like maybe they are. I shouldn't say that they aren't. But like, does all your customers know that? Like, does everybody understand that they're getting a robot until they pay you a certain amount? Because I hope so. That's very important. Okay, Vicky asked, where can I get the PowerPoint for these slides? All slides and recordings will be made available for all attendees, not immediately after the event. We have 24 hours of footage to go through. So I'm hoping next week, but either way, whenever it is, it'll be in your email. So you don't have to worry about missing it. We'll send you an email. Mariana asks, regarding this question, oops, I don't know which question, but maybe it'll have context. Not all issues raised by users. Oh, this is about the feedback. Not all issues raised by users can be transformed into changes in the product or service, but they can still be useful to the community. So how do you use this information? That's actually
A really good point. Jinx, we both said it at the same time. This is also something I think about all the time, Ariana. Thank you for the great question. Again, users raise different types of issues, but I think you somehow at some point find thematic alignments on the topics that they raise. And this is where data comes into play, right? So you can't put it into product or service because sometimes there could be limitations that are not within your control. It could be a limitation within the API you're utilizing or some other functionality. So again, those questions are really useful just because, for example, we have a universal search. Feel free to utilize the Supermetrics community universal search where you can find everything related to the product. But again, I've checked with not only our support team, but also our product team. What are they usually asking? What are these questions that they're asking, but they're not getting answers to? We don't want them to feel like they're the only ones here. Well, that is why we have the community. So what we do is we turn them into articles or posts, and we're like, hey, these are your best tips around this. We've found out that a lot of people have this limitation, our product or our solution or something, we cannot resolve this, but however, we found these to be very useful tips, or this is a way you can work around it. That's how I usually approach these topics is let's use this information, let's use these questions, because again, the questions and the queries are telling us something. It's telling us that everybody's looking for the same answers to the same questions.
And a great opportunity to tap on those super users and say,
Exactly.
hey, super user, you came up with a great workaround for this. Can you share this with this person? And then you can become friends and help each other.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. I tag the super user who I remember has told me a similar challenge or something. I'll be like, do you have a great idea for this or another one? I think that's because users also want to hear from other users and members.
Totally. Okay, Amber, where does learning about human behavior science come into play? How are community managers getting educated or not getting enough support to learn about it? This is a great question.
That is a really great question. And I'm trying to wait. It's at the top. So human behavior science come in. Oh, that's a really quick question. Amber, what I did personally, I can give you that. I don't know what all other community managers are doing is I studied psychology. I would take courses around that. I did my master's in business technologies, but I was really interested in human behavior. That's why I wanted to do my thesis on building communities for specific group. But it all comes down to humans are all the same. We're all looking for people who understand us, who have similar pain points, who we can share our thoughts and ideas with, but also have the same values as we do. Again, it is all about what we do with the information that we have. We've all narrowed down the fact that we have very limited resources, but I think the internet is filled with free courses that you can utilize and learn about different ways. And I think there's a lot of platforms, can't throw it out of my head right now, but for example, I've been doing Fever Trees, some of the courses for community management and other stuff, but you also learn a lot about the emotional payback or the users, the way you can actually get in touch with them on that sense. Also, there's a lot of webinars and podcasts. I also listen to Locked In webinar, which also talks about, not webinar, sorry, podcast that Brian Oblinger and Erica Cool do, which is also really interesting. But again, you learn by, I think the internet is an open book and you can get so much information from that. Books, courses, and just YouTube videos.
I think that's a good reminder as well, Sarah, because none of us are walking around with a degree in community professionalism. And one of our speakers later today is going to talk about this a little bit of just like the idea that, Sarah has some psychology in her background. I don't. I went to theater school and then was a customer success person. So, like how do we take our experiences and put them into what we're doing? I think that that's what makes us experts, um, because we can draw on the experiences that brought us here. The only thing that all of our kind of origin stories have in common is that we found ourselves in the community industry. And I don't think a lot of people see this industry from the outside and say, I want to do that. I think we all kind of stumble upon it because the choices we made in our careers and our personal lives have brought us to this place. And that's for a reason. It's because you're meant to be here. And yeah, upskilling is great, looking in the internet is great, but also drawing on your past experiences, trusting the fact that you found yourself here for a reason.
Exactly. And if you're a community professional or professional, we're all living and learning as we go, but each community is very individual. It could be specific community that focuses on gaming or professionalism or different stuff. You need to learn your audience. You need to know who they are and how they talk. And I think that also helps you with the human behavior part of things.
Exactly. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for everybody who popped a question in the Q&A. Mathieu, I did see your question about slide 4, or the 4-step slide. You will have access to the slides and the recording of this session soon after the event is finished. Probably not this week, hopefully next week, and at which point you'll be able to check out the 4 steps on Sarah's slide. Thank you again for joining us, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everybody, for the questions. Bye.
Hello, everybody. That was great. I always appreciate some true engagement in the chat. So thank you for everybody who asked their questions and made their comments. It's really cool to see so many different perspectives and where people are coming from and how you're thinking about stuff. So as always, thank you for engaging in the chat.